Novo Publishing presents Daddy's Song by Dennis Jernigan. The father very gently cradled his son in his arms. The boy loved the way his father held him, and he held him a lot. The father loved his son more than any father had ever loved a child, more than the boy loved him. Sometimes the father would sing to the boy while he held him. In fact, more often than not, the father would sing him right to sleep. The father's song was always sweet and tender, never forceful or harsh. I'll have no other, for I love you only. I'll never forsake you or leave you alone. I love you. Oh, how I love you. I love you. Oh, how I love you. And sometimes, in his own simple way, the boy would sing back to his father. Here in your arms I'll always be, at rest in the precious love you have for me. I love you. Oh, how I love you. I love you. Oh, how I love you. Every day the father would call to his son, "Come walk with me," and the little boy would run happily from wherever he was, for he loved these walks with his father, and he knew that when they had walked far enough, his daddy would scoop him up, hold him close, and carry him home, singing all the while. I'll have no other, for I love you only. I'll never forsake you or leave you alone. And even though the boy would always fall asleep in his daddy's arms, his heart would keep singing. Here in your arms I'll always be, at rest in the precious love you have for me. One day a stranger greeted the boy. He was handsome, kind, and friendly. He invited the boy to walk with him and some other children and learn their songs. Without giving it much thought, the boy decided to join them. But as he began walking with the others, he heard his father calling, "Son, I'm here. Come walk with me." And he was singing. I'll have no other, for I love you only. I'll never forsake you or leave you alone. The father waited. The boy heard his father, but pretended not to. And as the boy sang songs he had learned from his new friends, he began to realize what he had done. He had chosen to walk with others instead of walking with his father. And now his daddy's song, the one that used to make him feel so happy, made him feel like running away. The boy hid. How could he ever face his father again? Still his daddy sang to him. Come here, my precious, I know you are hurting, and though you have left me, I welcome you home. The boy had walked so far away from his father that he no longer even knew where he was. The father, though, had never stopped searching for his son. Hearing the boy's muffled cries, the father ran to his son, picked him up, dried his eyes, calmed his fears, and washed him clean. And as he held his son close to his heart, closer than he had ever held him before, he sang to him, "I'll have no other, for I love you only. I'll never forsake you or leave you alone." Even though the son could feel his father's love, things weren't the same. Sadly, the son wasn't able to hear his daddy's song as clearly as before. So even though his father still loved him dearly, the son couldn't hear it or believe it. Still, his father sang, "I love you. Oh, how I love you. I love you. Oh, how I love you." Since he found it harder and harder to hear his father's voice, the boy began listening to the voice of the stranger again, and in time, he began singing his love song to any stranger who would listen. Day after day, the father called to his son to walk with him, and day after day, the boy walked farther away. Before long, the boy became hopelessly lost and alone in the dark, afraid and ashamed, hurt and dirty, sick and dying. The voices of every one of those to whom he had sung his love had stopped singing back to him. In fact, their once beautiful love songs had turned to screams of hate and lies, and their tender hugs were no longer gentle like his daddy's had been. Now they hurt. They had become ropes of iron and chains of steel. When the boy finally realized he was trapped and hopeless, he began to cry out to the only one who had ever really loved him. His daddy. "Daddy, so dear, I'm all alone. I am afraid and I want to come home." And he waited. How could his father ever love him after what he had done? Then the boy's ears heard an old familiar tune and an old familiar voice, and his heart felt an old familiar warmth as his daddy picked him up and held him in an old familiar embrace. And his daddy sang, "I love you. Oh, how I love you. I love you. Oh, how I love you." And as he held him close, the boy's father did a strange thing. He took off the chains and ropes one by one, humming his love to the boy all the while. He unraveled all the fears the boy had ever known. He untied the knots of hopelessness, every one of them. He cut off every harsh word or bitter deed the boy had used to hurt others. He broke off the hardness of his heart that had been built up by the boy's own doubt and pride. He dried every tear as he washed away the dirt and filth his son had known for far too long. And then the father did an even stranger thing. He placed all of those things upon himself. It was then that the son realized what he had done. The weight of his sin was choking the life out of his daddy, yet his father managed to sing until his dying breath. "I'll have no other, for I love you only. I'll never forsake you or leave you alone. The boy sat there empty and alone, stunned by such a precious love. And he waited. All those other voices were gone now. All he could hear was his daddy's song, the memory of that final refrain playing over and over again in his ears. After a while, the boy slept the soundest sleep he had known since last he had walked with his father. And as he slept, he imagined he heard very clearly the song his daddy used to sing to him. He even thought he saw his daddy's face. And he was sure he felt the arms of his father holding him close. And just then, the boy realized the truth. His daddy was right there with him, and he was alive. This was no dream. The little boy jumped into his daddy's arms. He knew now that nothing could separate him from his father's love, ever. As they held on to each other, they sang. I'll have no other, for I love you only. I'll never forsake you or leave you alone. Here in your arms I'll always be, at rest in the precious love you have for me. I love you. Oh, how I love you. I love you. Oh, how I love you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.